Okay, YouTube, welcome back to another video. Today we are discussing whether or not Tudor is the poor man's Rolex. So, without further ado, let's get into it. I posed the question to Reddit recently, and some of the responses I got were a little bit concerning, if you will. So, I want to start the video off by reading some of those comments and addressing them head on. So let's begin. So the first comment is from Lord Longrod, and he says, when you wear a Tudor, you are essentially saying, I wish I had a Rolex, but I can't afford one. Well, Lord Longrod, I actually happen to own a Tudor, but I also own this, so I mean, clearly I can afford them both, so I don't know what you're trying to say here. I don't think you're exactly making a very valid point. Moving on though, let's read another one. If you can walk into any Rolex AD and buy whatever stainless steel watch you want, why would anyone buy a Tudor? Well, I like both, because I like both. That's why I would buy a Tudor. Yeah, I think your comment is very, very ignorant, and you don't know what you're talking about. And the last comment that I want to highlight in this thread is probably one of the most heartbreaking comments that I've read so far. These posts and these comments are what's wrong with the watch industry. It's all about the flex and look at what I can afford. This person is absolutely right. You know, oftentimes, you know, when we're talking about watches or when we're making watch content on YouTube, we like to make these straw man arguments and construct these straw man fallacies that, you know, nobody is actually asserting. But here's the thing: these are responses to a question I posed on Reddit from real people. You know, real people took the time out of their day to respond to my question on Reddit and say these utterly asinine things. So, you know, clearly there is a segment of the watch enthusiast community that does believe that Tudor is the poor man's Rolex. So let's talk about why that is absolutely not the case. If I were to sum this video up in one sentence, I would say that, you know, go to Ocean O'Malley's channel and ask him about his opinion on the matter. And he puts it the best way. Tudor is simply not the poor man's Rolex. If you take out the word poor from that statement, then it becomes true. Alright? The only people who say that Tudor is the poor man's Rolex are, you know, Omega fanboys. Sorry, Omega fanboys, but, you know, I've heard it come out of your guys' mouths before. You know, the only people that say that are Omega fanboys, watch snobs who attach their self-worth to their collection, and people that just generally don't know anything about watches. Let's be real here. Both Tudor and Rolex together fall under the same exact parent organization, which is the Hans Willisdorf Foundation. It's literally the same company. So you can't, you know, you can't put one as being inferior to the other. I think they exist on the same plane. One is just simply at a different price tier, and one is simply a bit more affordable for most people. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? That is the first thing I want everyone to get through their head when they believe that Tudor is the poor man's Rolex. It simply is not. One is just more affordable than the other. Both Tudor and Rolex have a shared history of being on the wrists of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines in the 20th century. Tudor and Rolex used to be issued to many units throughout the US military and other militaries of the world. If you don't believe me, go to Watches of Espionage's website and look up Tudor's history with the military. It's pretty fascinating. But beyond that, Tudor watches share Rolex's reputation for durability, robustness, and a utilitarian design. So let's actually take a moment to pause and compare one watch to the other. Right here I have my recently acquired Pelagos 39, and I have a Rolex Submariner 126610 LN, the date version. As you can see, there are some visual differences, most notably the fact that the sides of the case on the Submariner are high polished and the Pelagos 39 is brushed. The Pelagos 39's finish is actually brushed all the way throughout, as opposed to the Submariner, which has polished case sides, polished flanks, polished sides on the clasp, and a polished coin edge bezel. There's a lot more like visually going on here than there is with this, and I think it's a nice distinction, right? But just because this is higher polished than this doesn't necessarily make this one any higher quality, right? It's just a design difference. Where this watch does stand out, though, is in terms of specs and the water resistance and the accuracy rating. So this is a superlative chronometer, which is the in-house certification, plus or minus 2 seconds a day when fully cased up, versus just COSC for this, so -4 to +6 seconds a day, I believe. This is 904L stainless steel, which is much more scratch resistant than grade 2 titanium, but on the other hand, grade 2 titanium is much lighter. 200 meters of water resistance versus 300 meters of water resistance. Aside from that, these are both very, very nice watches, and just because you have one in the collection doesn't mean you don't have space for the other. And that's the point that I really want to hit on here. These two watches, even though they're quite similar in design, they do complement each other quite well. To be honest, in the modern day, they kind of serve different purposes. I wear this one on much different occasions than I wear this one on. The thing is, right, Rolex in general has really moved up market lately. If you look at Watches and Wonders 2024 releases from Rolex, you'll notice that there was only one steel sports watch that was added to the line, and it was the GR&R. Aside from that, everything else was either an iced out Daytona or a variation of the Day-Date, which is all precious metal, as well as the Platinum Cellini with the guilloche dial, and the solid gold, the solid yellow gold Deep Sea. All of those watches are extremely pricey, extremely high-end, and, for a lack of a better term, they're quite blingy. They're not necessarily... Rolex this year, in my opinion, was not necessarily concerned with embodying the spirit of tool watches, right? That's just not what they were going for this year, and there's nothing wrong with that. Tudor, on the other hand, released a lot this year that appealed to a lot of people. They released the Metis certified Black Bay monochrome, which has got everyone's attention right now. They also released the Black Bay 58 GMT in the Coke variation with a gilt dial and gilt hands. That is an absolute stunner, and I have a very strong feeling that that is going to outsell a lot of pieces that are in Tudor's current collection. The point is that Tudor had a lot of sports watch related and tool watch adjacent releases this year that are frankly much more affordable than other watches out on the market right now. And Tudor is continuing to step up the quality of their movements by getting more products in their line that are Metis certified. And that is a huge deal, because now with Metis certified products in the lineup, they are going to be taking away market share from Omega. Previously, I believe Omega was one of the few watch brands to get their watches certified by Metis, and now that is changing. So that is definitely something that is worth noting. All right, I just want to make a quick comparison here. If Tudor was a gun manufacturer, then they would be like Glock. So, why am I bringing a gun manufacturer into this discussion? Well, right here, I have a Glock 19. This gun is clear, it's safe to handle. Safe to handle, there's no rounds present at all. Safe to use. So, why do I have this, and why am I comparing it to this? The comparison really is quite simple. Look at the design of these two products. There's not really anything overly flashy or gimmicky or crazy about it. They're just simple, utilitarian designs that just work. They just work. They're durable, they're reliable, they're functional, they're dependable, and as I just demonstrated when looking at this Rolex, there are other products out there that do beat this watch in terms of specifications, right? But the thing is, for the price and the affordability that you get with this, it just works. It does its job, and it does its job well, and you can count on it when you really need it. That's hard to say for some other products that are more expensive, namely, brands like Patek Philippe or JLC or Panerai or what have you, right? There are much more expensive brands out there that basically do the same exact thing, but that you may run into issues with if you expose them to adverse conditions that this would otherwise be capable of handling. And, for example, you cannot take a Patek Philippe shooting, running, hiking, and swimming all in the same day. You just can't do that, and you really shouldn't. It's not advisable. Why would you do that? If you had a rose gold Aquanaut 5167, sure, it may be able to stand up to it, but it's really not a good idea, and there's no guarantee that your watch is going to survive all that torture in one day. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You could absolutely do that with a Rolex Submariner, right? A Rolex Submariner is a freaking tank of a watch. It's absolutely bulletproof. You cannot destroy that. You cannot destroy this thing. But at the same time, it's a $10,000 tank. You're gonna, on the off chance that you did do all of those things in the same day and you somehow damaged your Submariner, which is unlikely, but it's possible. In the event that that happened, you would be paying out to repair your Submariner, as opposed to if you just took this with you instead. In the amount of time that you'd have worn this, you could have saved up enough money to either service it or buy a replacement. That is assuming that you have owned this for quite some time and you took care of it, right? You can do a lot of things with a Rolex, but at the same time, you can subject your Rolex to a lot of harsh treatment, but at the same time, why would you? It's too expensive for that. It's too nice for that now. Rolex has moved up market, like I said earlier. So there's not really much point in exposing your Rolex to that kind of torture. This, on the other hand, can take that. And in my opinion, as far as the Pelagos specifically goes, the nice thing about this watch is that it does get scratched up and it does show its age and its wear. This watch, I've only had this for a little over 2 weeks now, and there are already some scratches that are starting to appear on the watch. And frankly, I have zero problem with that, because that just means that I am using this watch for its intended purpose. I am taking this watch out, I am making memories with it, I am beating it up, and it's going to look really, really badass in a few years. So, what does all this mean? Tudor is just generally its own brand at this point. Tudor is made for a different kind of individual. I'm not saying that Rolex is bad. I'm not saying that Rolex is not worth it. It absolutely is. I love all of my Rolexes. I love my collection so far. But, like I said earlier, I wear a Tudor for different reasons than I wear a Rolex. But that does not mean that Tudor is the poor man's Rolex. It's just a different brand now. It's just different. in many ways. It's much more rugged. It's much more durable, affordable. So, with that being said, I want to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. I think I've been rambling enough. Let me know what you think of everything I said in this video, whether or not you agree with me. Do you think that Tudor is the poor man's Rolex? And if you do, let's talk about it. Let's hear why. Aside from that, I have nothing else for you. I hope you have a good day. See you later.